Support Celtic Warrior workouts and give me a subscribe. Oh, and also support WrestleTalk and give them a subscribe.
Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
What can save WWE's record low ratings? I am Luke Owen, and this week I'm joined by none other than Adam Pearson. Adam, how are you, sir?
I am fantastic, thank you, Mr. Luke Owen. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Happy World Emoji Day, Luke Owen.
A happy World Emoji Day to you as well, sir. So, for any of our viewers who might not know who you are, why don't you tell the WrestleTalk audience what an Adam Pearson is?
What is an Adam Pearson? It's a question I often wonder it myself. Well, I'm not the manager of Hull Rugby Club. Please stop messaging me about that. I am a British actor, presenter, campaigner. I'm hailing from the UK. I've done BBC Science documentaries on things like hate crime, Broadville, genetics. I was also I'm most famous for being in Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson back in 2014. I've done a few other films since then. I do TED Talks, lecturing, public speaking. I am a jack of all trades, master of none, but I won Celebrity Mastermind, so none of that matters.
And crucially, your chosen topic for Celebrity Mastermind was
World Wrestling Entertainment in the 21st Century.
Very well. Congratulations to you as well. As a fellow quiz winner, I think we've got a common bond.
We do. We're like the opposite of Ollie Davis, aren't we? Together as one.
Pretty much. Right, so let's talk about Raw and its ratings. Funny enough, actually, I nearly did this as last week's podcast when we had SP3 on, because last week's Raw also did a really bad number. That one did 1.68 million viewers. The previous record low before that was 1.686. So, we thought that maybe there could be something there. Raw's not been doing great. It got a 1.72 the week previous and a 1.9 the week before that. SmackDown also posted quite a bad number as well. But this week's Raw is the now new record low number, doing 1.56 million viewers. But really, like the good news for WWE is that the 18 to 49 number didn't drop nearly as badly, rather. But the actual sort of like the overall viewership wasn't great, considering that they've been doing so much promotion around having Randy Orton on the show, having Big Show, Ric Flair, doing this night of grudge matches with Seth and Owens, and the tag match that he had at the end with Kabuki Warriors, Bayley and Banks. But Raw again posted a number. So, what do you think Raw can do in order to sort of bounce this number back?
I have no actual idea, because I think the fact there's no live audiences there has a dramatic effect on how watchable something is. And it's all, and I hate using this, it's all about people having to adjust to the new normal. And particularly in TV, audiences like familiarity. They like their beats and their narrative arcs and their format points and what have you. It doesn't help that they don't have the full roster there and available for various reasons, which we'll come on to a bit later, I think. And it's also, at the moment, what was the build up to the horror show at Extreme Rules. I found the product, granted, fair credit to them, they've gone all in on the gimmick, but I found it a little bit hokey. And wrestling's supposed to be hokey, but not this hokey. I think a match where you win by gouging your opponent's eye out, which is literally assault. And I know they're going to use CGI. I know how to separate the fiction from the reality. But it is by far the weirdest match involving Rey Mysterio. And he once had a ladder match for custody of his child.
I do think that there is something about that eye for an eye match possibly jumping the shark and it sort of turning viewers off, being like, you know what? I think I'm just not going to bother with this because it's just a bit too silly.
Well, we'll see how it looks. It's going to be the actual wrestling will be very good because it's Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio. But it's just the bells and whistles they happen to have wrapped it up with are just incredibly ridiculous. Imagine, like, if I was watching that and that moment happened, and at the exact same time my girlfriend walks in, how am I going to explain this away to my non-wrestling fan girlfriend? And you're like, it's fine. It's all his son's an injury and steps, and Seth thinks he's Jesus, and I love you. Please don't leave me.
Melter had a really interesting point in the Observer that came out. We were recording this quite early on a Friday morning. Thank you, Adam, for joining us so early on a Friday morning. I know you were up early. I know you were up early because you're excited for Paper Mario, but thank you for taking the time to speak with us as well. But Melter had a really interesting point with the Raw ratings declining so significantly. The Big Show versus Randy Orton match will air next week on Raw in an unsanctioned match. This does make sense because that match isn't going to add any network buyers, which is how you make money today from pay-per-view. But after this week's record low number, Show versus Orton should avert coming even close to another record low next week. At least they'd better hope for that, because it will be scary if they put that match on television and don't get a significant improvement, which is a really big, like that. We said it on the Raw review, me and Ollie, the Big Show versus Randy Orton match being on TV is totally like a ratings grab thing. It's been like, ratings are in the toilet. Let's put on what is possibly the biggest match we can at the moment. And I'm so surprised. I'm really into this Big Show Randy Orton feud just because Randy's doing great work. And I do think it might help Raw's ratings next week, massively so.
Agreed. Everyone's always said when Randy Orton cares about what he's doing and puts his whole Ortonness into it, he's the best heel in wrestling when he can be bothered. And right now he's absolutely bothered by this. And he's got Ric Flair backing him up, who's such a good character to add to this. If you park the side as to whether it's safe to have a man of that age with those health problems in Florida during a pandemic. So I think it will be good. And Big Show's in like the best shape ever. He left it until really late in his career to get into the best shape of his life.
Yeah, he's looking great at the moment. There was an interesting comment as well this week by AJ Styles when he was interviewed. I'm not going to. He was interviewed by a dirt rag, the Sun, unfortunately. But he did have this to say to them when asked about Raw, WWE's falling ratings across both Raw and SmackDown. And his comment was, "You can't deny the fact that Roman Reigns is one of the biggest stars in WWE. He is WWE. He's the guy. So to get him back would be a big help." And that's something that I don't think we've really talked about, particularly on this show. I don't know if other podcasts have talked about this, but it's something that I've not really considered. We haven't had Roman on TV since WrestleMania, and since WrestleMania is when we've started to see these falling things. And I wonder if it is that combination of, as you say, the empty arena shows people like seeing familiarity and the shows don't look the same anymore. So you've got that combined with Roman not being on TV, who is WWE's biggest star. They built the company around him for the last 5-6 years. And him not being there probably is having a ratings effect.
Completely. Whenever you lose your biggest star, people will invariably kind of either switch off or be less invested in it and be more likely to say, "Oh, I think I'll give it a miss this week." And that time slot in the States is ridiculously competitive. So it's not as if people have to look hard for like an entertaining alternative. When you couple that with the fact that a lot of people are kind of cable cutters and can just go to the online streaming platforms to find something that can entertain them for those 3 hours. The loss of Roman was a really significant one, an understandable one, but a really significant one.
Do you think that, like, I mean, WWE have been known to really push to get people back. Do you think that they're going to be looking to bring Roman back in for this show? It's not they've done it before. They did it with the leukemia, like when to bring him back to just sort of like pop a rating and stuff. Do you think they're going to like reach out to bring him in for a Raw ratings bump?
I think I would be nervous about the PR that would generate. Saying, oh, Vince McMahon brings back immunosuppressed father of two, Roman Reigns, in a bid to save dying ratings. I'm not going to put it past him. I'm just saying it's not the smartest idea he's ever had.
No. It's certainly not. No, but you're right. But I think in terms of WWE, PR probably isn't the first thing that's on their radar of like, hey, let's care about that now.
No, we've learned that from the Saudi shows, haven't we?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, I mean, because we're recording this on a Friday morning, that means we get to talk about the ratings. Hooray for AEW and NXT. This is more numbers. And it was a big win for AEW this week. 788,000 viewers for Fight for the Fallen, their best number since late May, which beat NXT's 631,000 viewers, which is the company's worst number since late May. Both did quite well in the 18 to 49, but it was a really, really big win for AEW in the 18 to 49 demographic. And even the over 50s was close this week between AEW and NXT as the sun comes in to shine on my face, like a nuclear explosion's going off. And it was an interesting week as well because there was the NASCAR All-Star race that was basically on at the same time, which a lot of people thought was going to affect both shows. And in the end, it didn't affect AEW, but I think it massively affected NXT.
So this is the first time AEW have won the real numeric ratings war in, I think, 3 weeks. I think NXT had a really good run of stuff building up to the Keith Lee, Adam Cole title versus title. And I think also the moving Jon Moxley and Brian Cage back a week is what really helped boost that rating. The show was great from start to finish. I love the tag match. I love watching FTR do tag team wrestling because everything they do just makes sense.
Yeah.
And as like a logically minded guy, when I watch Ray Phoenix do loads of flips and stuff, I'm like, that looks cool. But why have you done it? That's a highly uncalculated, illogical thing to do when you could have just stuck him in an armbar. And, I preferred AEW this week, so I think the higher rating is completely justified. So I also think we should focus more on the actual wrestling and less on the numbers, just the fans in general.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that point. I really like diving into the numbers. I think that's why me and Ollie often get on so well, is because we do like to sort of like look at these sort of factors. But I thought it was a really good week for AEW and NXT. The positives to always look at this is that there's 1.5 million wrestling fans enjoying wrestling on a Wednesday night. I thought AEW Fight for the Fallen was great this week. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought NXT was great as well. You can't really go wrong with Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic. Like, you cannot go wrong with that. And I'm just loving Io Shirai's work at the moment.
I adore Io. I think she's probably one of the best female wrestlers, not only in that company, but maybe on the planet. They'll need, and with Kairi Sane leaving, they also need someone to fill the gap that they think that Zane's going to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. What else did you make of Fight for the Fallen and NXT this week?
The Moxley Cage finish was genius. Yeah. So clever.
Yeah,
it makes perfect sense. The internet hated it because Twitter hates everything. So it's Taz protecting his investment that's already had a 5-month hiatus with a bicep injury that can't afford to lose another 5 months. And it's taken a short-term loss for a long-term gain. Lose the battle, win the war. There we go.
Yeah, Absolutely loved it. I was a big fan of that. And actually, though, looking at the ratings pattern, the highest point for AEW in terms of that 18 to 49 demographic was FTR versus the Lucha Brothers. So FTR equals ratings. Take that, Jericho, parent demo god. But let's dive into the Patreon mailbag. If you've got a question for the mailbag, all you've got to do is become one of our awesome pledge hammers on Patreon at any dollar amount and leave a comment in the community section. Do not email me. I will just lose it. Bad at my job. Our first one comes in from Abnahav, who says, hey, how do you feel about double champions like Keith Lee and Becky Lynch? Personally, I'm not a fan of it. My reason is a championship can start a storyline between two wrestlers. If one person has both championships, then I feel only one storyline is important, the other one gets faded. I understand championships are not required for storytelling, but they are a good way for it. Do you think, as a company, you shouldn't have double champions? It's from Abnahav.
They definitely cut your booking options in half if you want to use a championship belt as a linchpin of a feud. And I'm going to be curious to see how they get one of the belts off Keith Lee without discrediting the fact that he holds the other one. Because no one's going to want to have logically, why would I have a championship match with Keith Lee for the United States title when I can pin the same guy in the same match for the NXT World title? So to a degree, I get that point. It's all going to be in sort of like the booking and the nuance and what have you. So completely get the point and completely agree.
Yeah, it's we saw this with Kurt Angle when he was Eurocontinental champion. I think that actually the way they got around that was quite smart. They had the 2 out of 3 falls match at WrestleMania 2000 with him, Benoit, and Jericho, where it was the first falls for the IC belt, the second falls for the European Championship. So I think that's kind of a good way to get around it, particularly because in that match, Kurt Angle lost both of his titles without getting pinned. So it's good for sort of character work. But I do agree, like they gave Becky both titles last year. And then, a month later, just took one of the titles off of her. So really, what was the point of putting both belts on her in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Well, that was just to hype up the first women's WrestleMania main event, just to put everything in there. Just throw everything. Let's throw everything at this. Everything.
The only French guy that watches wrestling, Kano Mac, has said, hey guys, obviously I'm a big fan of Big Red Mayor Kane, and I always thought that he should have won the 2001 Royal Rumble. My question is, how Kane winning the Royal Rumble and main eventing WrestleMania instead of Austin have impacted WWE and the Attitude Era? Keep up the great work. That's a really interesting, it was... As a big Kane mark, particularly at that time, I also really wanted him to win that 2001 Royal Rumble because I thought it would have been something quite different. But really, the only guy that should have won that match was Austin, because Austin Rock was the biggest match that you could have done for WrestleMania X7. I don't think that putting Kane in that match would have been the right choice at that time, even though I would have loved it.
But would you though? Because if Kane is in that main event, we don't get Kane, Big Show, Raven triple threat for the hardcore title, where Raven nearly takes the whole broadcast off air. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, do you know what? You're absolutely right. So I'm actually glad that Austin won that match, because otherwise we wouldn't have got the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. Johnny Garcia says, consider this. If Dave Meltzer had never challenged Cody to fill 10,000 seats for an indie show, AEW was never created and the Elite signed with WWE. What storyline would you like to see? I would love to see a Bullet Club faction with Cody, the Bucks, Finn Balor, Gallows Anderson, AJ, Page, bloody hell, Omega, and Adam Cole. Keep up the great work. Don't forget to check out my podcast, Wrestling Has Lost Its Way. Jam that jam. So this is an interesting one. So actually, it's already been released. The WCPW Built to Destroy 2016 review with myself and Adam. And in that, Adam was talking about Cody being backstage for, WCPW show. And he said even then he could see that he was an entrepreneurial man who was protective of his brand and was probably already looking to start something. So I think you're absolutely right, Johnny, that without Dave making that tweet of being I don't think Ring of Honor can sell out a 10,000 seat show, we might not have had AEW, but I think even without that, Cody probably still would have had that entrepreneurial spirit. With that said, Yeah, would Kenny and the Bucks still have taken those WWE deals? Possibly. I'd have liked to have seen it. I'd have liked to have seen rather than I'd have rather just like it to have been Kenny and the Bucks taking those deals and Kenny going on a singles run and the Bucks going on a tag run, but as a sort of trio friendship. I'm not sure I would have liked to have seen a big Bullet Club faction with sort of the 20 members that you've listed there.
I'd be nervous bringing them in that way, because that's the same way that they brought in AJ Styles and the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson. And they just ruined Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. And I'm worried they'd ruin the Young Bucks. There's still an underlying, well, we didn't make that here attitude with WWE booking that's slowly fading out, but still permeates through quite deeply. But the Young Bucks in WWE would be money. It would just, if they were booked properly, it would absolutely draw. Can you imagine the Young Bucks versus DIY?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were so many matches that they could have, like, yeah, an incredible list of dream matches. I'd have loved to see the Young Bucks versus the Street Profits. I think they'd have done some amazing stuff.
Oh, I want that now. Oh, don't do this to me, Luke. Don't dangle these things that can't happen.
Bobby Ross, he says, hello, so glad to be a Pledge Hammer. Can't wait for my t-shirt to arrive. My question is, who do you think is the more complete wrestler, Daniel Bryan or CM Punk? Ever since his 2019 heel run, I've got to say Daniel Bryan has done some really compelling stuff. But please, I can only encourage small discussion here. Can't wait to hear your takes. Luke, keep on being a greatly talented podcast. I'm sure whoever will have as your guest this week will be just as great. Thank you very much, Bobby, for your kind words. And I've got to agree with you there, actually. I think, yeah, the most complete wrestler is Daniel Bryan.
No, wholeheartedly agree. So on definition alone, because CM Punk isn't wrestling anymore, there's that. But I've been a huge Bryan fan for a while, even back in his days of American Dragon. I think he's just got a really solid technical skill set. He's good on the mic. He can go heel, he can go face, and do everything in between. And also, he's just a really nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I've picked Daniel Bryan as well, I mean, as much as I love Punk, and, you know, Punk was doing some amazing stuff in WWE and outside of WWE, the Summer of Punk in Ring of Honor, for example, I think he's done great work around the world. But again, I was talking to Blompier about this yesterday for the WrestleTalk podcast show on the Fight Network. We were kind of talking about sort of great ROH champions. And we just started talking about Bryan Danielson. And you kind of go back to his ROH run, as you were saying there, and like, man, like the guy was untouchable. Like he was just every single time he stepped into that ring was just putting on the greatest stuff you've ever seen. I really do think he is the most complete wrestler of this generation.
He's just a really safe set of hands. Just like, oh, we need to put someone in the ring to make them look good and help build them from the mid-card to the main event. Who should they be feuding with? Danielson.
Yeah. Dustin, what do you guys think about turning Aleister Black heel, get him away from Seth and Ray, and set him up as Drew's challenger for after SummerSlam? Keep up the consistent content and jam that jam. Yeah, what do you think? Aleister Black turning heel?
Book it. Done. The more Aleister Black I get, the happier I'll be. A big fan. Even before I came to WWE, I was a fan. I remember NXT TakeOver Blackpool, the first one when he made that surprise appearance. I was like,
was it the UK Championship tournament? And he came in as Tommy Ends, didn't he? Yeah, he actually came in as Tommy Ends. Yeah, Pat came out and said something, I don't know, Geordie accent. Wow. And I was like, what's going to happen? And Tommy End came out and I was like, yes, get him. That was it. Yeah, that was really, really cool. I completely forgot about that. I mean, for my money, I'm all in on the idea of doing Black and Drew as well after SummerSlam, but I don't think you need to turn him heel for that. I think you could do that as a babyface thing. And I think that'd be really cool. Claymore versus Black Mass, I think it sort of writes itself. I don't think you need to have one of them be babyface, one of them be heel there. But getting him away from the Seth and Ray stuff, I think, is definitely definitely a worthwhile endeavor. Dwayne the Gronk Johnson says, my question for you guys this week is, what is your opinion on WWE possibly doing cinematic Hell in a Cell matches this year? Should they continue doing no fan shows in the autumn? Personally, I think it might give Bray an opportunity to redeem himself after last year's disaster. Yeah, I mean, if we aren't in a period of time where we're getting fans back in arenas for Hell in a Cell, then 100% I can see them doing a cinematic Hell in a Cell match this year.
And it gives them chances to do kind of retakes and pickups of things that might not have gone right first time. So that if it goes wrong live with an audience there, that's it. Like the Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton Hell in a Cell, where Jeff just fell through a table of his own volition for the finish. If they could have redone that and gotten the timings more spot on, and done some clever stuff with jump cuts and editing, that could have been a really good finish in that environment. So I'd be all for it. At this point, anything they can do to differentiate their product, and they're operating under these very unique, difficult circumstances. And I'd be up for it just to see what it's like. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But risk is the embryonic start of success and awesomeness. So yeah, roll the dice.
Dylan from Cork says, top of the morning, lads. What's the biggest wrestling match result you've ever had spoiled for you? Mine is Daniel Bryan winning the main event of WrestleMania 30. I watched the show live up until Lesnar ended the streak, and I couldn't stomach the last two matches as I was so gutted about Taker losing. And despite telling my friend James that I hadn't seen the main event, he decided to respond by saying, Daniel Bryan won the match. Still not over it. What's the biggest match you've ever had spoiled for you?
I remember the first time someone spoiled a match for me, and it's a devastating moment, and I was quite young at the time. It was the six-man tag with Triple H and the McMahons, and Triple H was the champion against The Rock, Austin, and Taker, I think, were on the other side. And it's the one where The Rock won. And my friend Matthew was like the biggest Rock fan ever, kind of T-shirt, posters everywhere. Had bought the elbow pads. I was not a big Rock fan. I was a Triple H fan. And the agreement was we'd set our video timers, go to bed at normal time, record it, and watch it after school on Monday. And then he calls me really early on Monday, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? And he just goes, The Rock! And hangs up. And I'm like, you jackass.
I think it was Kane. I think it was the Brothers of Destruction and Rock in that main event. You're right, like the King of the Ring one, the six man. Yes, that was it, because Austin was still injured at that point. But actually, do you know what? Mine's around that same period of time and someone mentioned it earlier, the Royal Rumble 2001, because I didn't stay up to watch that show. And I went into school the following day trying to avoid, the spoilers. And I told my mates, I don't want to know. It was on Channel 4. I've got it recorded. I'm going to watch it when I get home. And yeah, dickhead spoiled it for me. Can't remember who it was now, but someone just did it just to be a dick. Sterling Van says, I know there's a lot of people out there that feel that wrestling fans are too sensitive about storylines, but I believe there is some merit to the outrage over the Jeff Hardy storyline. It's bad enough with Sheamus already, but people haven't mentioned that Samoa Joe was in a similar storyline with Jeff Hardy. Jeff got arrested later that same year for the same things that were mentioned in the Joe storyline. They should just let the story go. Now they're doing this story while pretending the Samoa Joe storyline didn't happen. They're wrong for doing this story. Yeah, I think Pete had a great rant about this on last Saturday's SmackDown podcast, and it's something that I didn't talk about when I did the Friday podcast. When there's the topic of are wrestling fans too sensitive about this, and that is that addiction is no laughing matter, and addiction doesn't go away even if you do overcome those demons. Addiction is still there, and all it takes is just that one thing to trigger you. And so that is, I think that's why there is that massive outrage to the Jeff storyline.
I think it trivializes what, as you've rightly said, as Pete so eloquently put in his rant last week. It's trivializing when it's quite a serious thing for a lot of people, and to do it particularly to someone who has and still to this day does wrestle with those demons, is just incredibly crass, in my opinion. And I don't want to sound like I'm being kind of snowflakey or contrary about it. And I'm assuming that Jeff has signed up on it himself and isn't doing it under duress. But my personal opinion is not a fan at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. Callum says, my question is about Impact Wrestling. Being a young fan in my late teens, it's only been in the last few years that I've really become aware and interested in the real life side of wrestling because you guys do such an awesome job. With this has also come my growth and knowledge of the amazing wrestling happening all over the world in companies, not just WWE. And recently, I started watching and getting into Impact, the amazing talent and work they're doing over there. Consequently, I'm super excited about Slammiversary this weekend. However, my knowledge of the history of Impact is limited. I was wondering if you guys could suggest your favorite matches from Impact's past and why you like them so much so I can check them out, keep up the incredible work, and jam that jam. I mean, obviously, the Slammiversary when Raven won the world title, that is, I'm just going to put that out there. And I think the obvious answer here is the unbreakable triple threat, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels. Just... It's groundbreaking stuff for 2005. Whether or not it holds up with 2020 eyes and for a sort of young fan coming into this, but like as a trailblazing main event, it's amazing stuff.
It's really good. The Kurt Angle's pay-per-view debut against Samoa Joe at Genesis holds up really, really well. There was a tag match. I can't remember what pay-per-view it was on. But it was the Team 3D versus the Motor City Machine Guns.
Yeah. They had a great series, actually. Really, really good.
So good.
Yeah.
Yes, and anything with the Guns and the Young Bucks who were going by Generation Me in TNA is also fantastic. There's a lot of good stuff in the older Impact. They get a really rough rap, TNA. But the Raven stuff. Remember, he had a stable for a while.
He did Serotonin.
Yes, so glad you remember.
It was Kaz. So it was Frankie Kazarian and Matt Bentley. I want to say, was it Matt Bentley?
I think Alex Shelley was in it as well. There are three of them.
Yeah. Right. Sorry, I'm gonna have to quickly Google this now.
If they balls up, he'd like come out and cane them, and it had this really. It was. I know it sounds utterly cliche to say, but it was so Raven.
It was so Raven. Okay, so he had two groups in TNA. I forgot the first one. He had the Gathering as well, which was Julio De Niro, Alexis Lurie, who was more commonly known as Mickey James, CM Punk, and Cassidy Riley. And then it was it was Matt Bentley. It was Frankie Kazarian and Matt Bentley and Johnny Devine originally. And then it was he was going as Havoc and Matt Bentley. Yeah. WWE, the only place where Raven didn't get to have his flock. Shame. The other one I was going to mention, because you just reminded me of it then, talking about sort of great Impact matches to go and check out, is actually it was only last year, I think it was. It's LAX versus the OGs. So the LAX, so they're in AEW now, of Santana and Ortiz versus the original version of LAX from sort of TNA's early years of Hernandez and Homicide. Those were having some amazing matches together. Those are really, really good.
Such good tag. I love good tag team wrestling when it's done well. And I'm really jazzed for actual Slammiversary now.
Yeah, Slammiversary is this coming Saturday. Ollie's going to be doing a review of it on Sunday because there's probably going to be some ex-WWE guys appearing on the show. Flame Inc. Live says, have you noticed that a lot of female talent is getting pregnant during COVID? First Becky, now Sarah Logan, and I'm sure that when Kairi Sane goes back to Japan, it's a bit presumptuous to say that she will be with child. Is this wise for ladies to be doing it at this time? And I've got a sci-fi question if you want to debate it. If you had to put together a space war between the Borg from Star Trek and the Daleks from Doctor Who would win and why? Also, Luke, you're a nerd. I don't think it's for us to say if someone wants to get pregnant during this time, whether that's wise or not. That's completely their choice, and I'm very happy for them. I'm very happy for all of them. For Becky and Sarah Logan and anyone else who was pregnant during this time. very, very happy for you. On the sci-fi, though, which I'm very interested to hear your take on this, the Borg from Star Trek versus the Daleks from Doctor Who.
It's a one-sided battle. It's the Borg from Star Trek. They'll use their technology, and any good technology the Daleks have that they quite fancy, they'll just assimilate. It's not even close.
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not really that close. The Borg are too good. They're too OP'd in this situation. Abraham says, "Hey, Luke, and the other one." Funny how that works. This question might take long to answer, so I'm sorry, but I heard about the question from the Going In Raw. You're in charge of AEW, and Adam, you're in charge of WWE. You have 3 trades: 1 man, 1 woman, 1 tag team to the other company. Who do you trade? For reference, Going In Raw did Adam Cole, Io Shirai, and the Usos for Adam Page, Britt Baker, and XLAX. So I'm in charge of AEW, and I get to trade for WWE. So I'd like, the Usos is a really good shout, actually, but I'm going to ask for Street Profits. And I'm going to ask for the Street Profits, and I'm going to ask for Asuka, and I'm going to ask for Daniel Bryan. So that's who I'd like.
Okay, I will give you the Street Profits in exchange for Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus.
Okay, I'll give you that.
I will give you Asuka. And I'm going to channel my Vince McMahon inner businessman here. I'll give you Asuka in exchange for Brandy Rhodes.
Ooh, I'll give you that.
And I'll give you Daniel Bryan for Hangman Page.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. You didn't take Kenny Omega away from me, so I'm happy with that one. Lovely stuff. Marcus Campbell said, including or excluding Chris Jericho, it's up to you. Who is the best wrestler who also has a music career? Though I'm not hugely into rap, I do like R-Truth's entrance music. Surely it's John Cena. He had a great rap album. I mean, I'll hold my hands up here. I'm not the biggest Fozzy fan. I think Judas is probably the only good song they've ever done. Come at me, comments.
Enemy, like All That Remains, like they've had, granted a lot of misses, but there's a few bangers in amongst that quite extensive back catalogue.
But yeah, who's the best wrestler to have who's also had a music career? How many have there been?
Not many. When I was living in Brighton, I was either at uni or my gap year, one of the two. There was like this really kind of dive pub called the Hobgoblin. In not always in bad, but kind of something like, it's called the Hobgoblin. You know what it's going to be like from the name. And Lisa's band were playing there, and we bought tickets. We went just to meet Lisa, and the music, it was there. That's the most constructive thing I can say. The music happened.
Yeah. I don't think she had a particularly. I think there were people who were fans of it. I was not one of those people, though.
Nor was I. But we met her afterwards. We had a chat. All my friends fanboyed, and I was like, guys, just play it cool. Don't mention the thing with Crime Time selling her panties to JBL or any of that. Don't. Have you bought a book to sign? Oh God. And all my friends embarrassed me that night.
I think Mickey James did all right. Did she? She released a country album, I think.
She's got a good voice on her.
Yeah, she's got a really good voice. She sang her own TNA intro theme. Hardcore country. Man Raj said, can you see AEW on their first live show with fans going ahead with the split of Hangman and Kenny? And also, if you've seen Dominion, what are your thoughts on Evil beating Naito for both belts? Seems like quite hot shot booking, which is unlike New Japan. So on the first point, it depends on when you do the live show, because I think the thing with AEW is that they have got storylines mapped out in sort of like, we are doing this point here, and this point here. So if the if the point when you get into live shows, that's not the time to do the split, I don't think AEW would do it. But if the time is right to do that split, then I absolutely could see AEW. I think when you've got your first live show back, you want to do a big angle. But if the time's not right to do the Hangman Kenny split, then I wouldn't want to see them do it. But I think they would absolutely want to do a big time like debut or return or something like that.
And it's how you split Kenny and Hangman. Just do it, and you want to do it in a way that's going to make either a really good poster or a really good trailer for the blow-off match. Like, was it you that was talking about doing the 6-man tag with one champion each team? Like that's amazing. Like, yes, please put it in my mouth, put it in my eyes, put it in my mouth, put it everywhere upon me. I am all in.
Yeah, I've got to credit the person who came to the mail on Twitter. I should really give them the shout out, but I can't remember who it was. Do apologize to whoever who suggested that to me. On the subject of Naito and Evil, I don't think I would say that it was hotshot booking, because I think New Japan needed to do something in order to get people talking about the product, because they've not been around for so long during all of this COVID stuff. So they had to do something. And without Jay White, they needed to build a big time heel, and Evil was the guy they went with. And when I look at New Japan, hotshot's never the thing that comes to mind, because Gedo will have thought this through. He would have said, like, we're going with Evil and we're going to do this. Excuse me. We're going to go with Evil and we're going to do this for the next year. So it may seem hotshot now, but with Gedo, there's always that bigger plan. There's always a bigger plan in mind.
And I'm so excited for that plan. He's such a great heel. And the tagline, "Everything is evil," is just, it rolls off the tongue. It's really clever. As someone who likes puns, I also greatly appreciate it. It's like they read Andy Jackson's mind and came up with that tagline.
Ollie Davis, #1 fan, best job in the world. Jordan says, Slammiversary is around the corner. What matches are you looking forward to, and who do you think will debut/re-debut? For me, I'm looking forward to Jordan Grace versus Deonna Purrazzo, and EC3, Heath Slater and the Good Brothers to debut. #Jam That Jam. Have a nice day. Those are the 4 names I would have said as well. I've said it on last week's podcast. Well, I'm thinking EC3 is going to be the mystery man in the main event, and I do think he's going to win the world title there. I can certainly see Heath Slater coming in, and Anderson and Gallows debuting once the North retain over Callahan and Ken Shamrock.
Completely agree with all of those. I'm also going to throw, because there was that really cryptic video where they also showed a tank and an American flag, which is clearly hinting at Rusev and Kurt Angle. And I reckon we'll get one of those.
Oh, I didn't think about Angle, yeah.
Yeah, and he's still in very good graces with TNA, and he's arguably did a lot of his best work there.
Oh yeah.
So I reckon we get Angle.
Yeah, Angle's not a bad shout. I didn't think of Angle because you're right, because he's got such good ties to Impact Wrestling as it is. But yeah, I think the safe bets are certainly EC3, Heath Slater, and Gallows and Anderson. Callum says, do you think Adam Cole will be one of the top champions by the end of the next year? So by the end of 2021, will Adam Cole be WWE or Universal Champion? I'm going to say no. As much as it pains me to say that, I'd like to see it happen, but I don't think it will.
Conversely, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say he gets called up, wins Money in the Bank, and cashes it in a heelish way, and we get Adam Cole, baby, as main champion. Yeah, I think they'd be silly not to, because he's clearly a safe set of hands from his NXT, 400-something day reign. And I also want to see it happen. The more Adams we have in places of prominence, the better this world will be. That's not my opinion. That's a fact.
Well, I hope you're right and I'm wrong. Kevin says, I'm that lapsed fan that Tony Khan keeps talking about. I haven't watched wrestling in almost 20 years, but somehow stumbled on Sammy Guevara's blog, which led me to start watching AEW early this year. WrestleTalk is also my first ever Patreon subscription. Thank you very much. My question for the AEW podcast review is, with the depth of the tag division in AEW, do you ever foresee them doing A, a tag team only pay-per-view, or B, once they get a second TV show, dedicating it to tag team wrestling only? Well, Adam, you're our big tag team wrestling mark. What do you think?
Yeah, I think doing a tag team only pay-per-view, whilst it's a great idea to the hardcore wrestling fans and those that, like myself, adore tag team wrestling, it might put other people off. So instantly you're splitting your audience. So as a fan, yes, give it to me. So as a business decision, it might not be the best one. A tag team only show would pretty much be the same thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of tournaments. I think they should run a massive tag tournament to find. But they do rankings anyway. I think the way AEW are running their tag division at the moment is pretty spot on.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, yeah, I think I would go for a tournament, like, sort of like a King of the Ring style tournament. You could do that as a pay-per-view, I suppose, to crown like the best tag team in the world, although that's already been taken. That was won by Gallus and Anderson. Maybe they come in to defend their honor of being the greatest tag team on the planet. They've got a cup to prove it. But yeah, like doing a whole pay-per-view of tag matches, it instantly brings to mind Lockdown, like the TNA Lockdown shows that they used to do, where it was like every match is a cage match, which on paper sounds great if you're a wrestling fan. It's like, oh my God, I love a cage match. But you suddenly realize when you get 3 cage matches into the show, you're like, oof, actually, I'm a little bit sick of cage matches now. And then but what TNA ended up doing was adding gimmicks onto the gimmick, and the show just started to become a little bit silly.
Oh, Lethal Lockdown, how I miss you.
My favorite of those.
One of my favorite spots ever was when Jeff Jarrett filled a guitar with thumbtacks and cracked the Abyss in the head with it. It was just like, oh.
My favorite one in terms of silly gimmicks being added onto Lockdown was the Team 3D. Is it Team 3? I can't remember who they were against now, where they did the electric steel cage.
LAX.
It was LAX. That was it.
Yeah.
And they had like the sound effects and the lights would dim whenever they would touch it. It was so hokey. That, and when they did the split of America's Most Wanted, they did James Storm and Chris Harris, and everyone was really super into that feud. So they put them in a cage match. They booked them in a cage match and a blindfold match at the same time, and it was so rubbish.
I was so disappointed with how that ended, because normally in that environment they excel. It's that really famous clip of the Hurricane Rana on the top of the cage. I think that's America's Most Wanted versus Triple X.
It was Triple X, yeah.
So good. Well, let me float this idea past you. What about a tag team version of the G1?
Oh, okay. Yes, that I'm into. That's a brilliant idea. That's a great idea. Oh, Adam.
They could run it for like 3 months, just put tag matches on their normal programming. Even though it's a good way to use Dark to get the audience to tune into that, because it gives it purpose. And then you have the actual finals and the title matches to bookend whatever pay-per-view you're leading up to.
Adam, you beautiful genius. I love it so much. I'm going to be gutted if that doesn't happen now, Adam. You've ruined wrestling forever. Tom says, hope everyone is well and being happy. It's not so much a question, but I had a thought. I might butcher this. I'm going to apologize because my Spanish is not so great. But ciego is blind in Spanish, and Ciego Mysterio sounds kind of cool. So why not Dominic Ciego Mysterio? He could take the fall for his dad and have as much time as he needs, if any, off TV to prepare for the main roster. Meanwhile, Ray could put his career on the line against Rollins to get his proper send-off. So yeah, so basically, I think what Tom is suggesting there is that Dominic is the one who gets his eye extracted at the horror show at Extreme Rules. And then that kind of gives him a way to be on TV for ages, to come back as the blind Mysterio.
Oh, the blind Mysterio. It's a really good way of getting your diversity quota up, granted. But is it the best booking on earth? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem with this whole eye for an eye match. How do you come back from that?
No.
Oh, I had my eye guys out, so I took a week off, and now I'm back, kind of in this John Cena-esque Superman like way. And I'm all for Dominic getting involved in the wrestling bits. And what I've seen of him so far, I've been quite impressed with. I'm always stunned how much taller than his dad he is. Like
Yeah,
always.
he's huge.
Like how tall is his mum? That's my question. Like who's his mum? Shaquille O'Neal? Like
So our next question comes in from Lynn, who says, when Wrestle League has predictions to do, can you do predictions videos for all of the events? For example, New Japan. It would be really helpful for those who know nothing about the promotion. It would put them at an unfair advantage in capturing the coveted first place on it in Wrestle League. So this is something that we have possibly talked about doing as sort of a Patreon only thing, because the problem is, when we've done stuff for New Japan in the past, like we've done streams of the Wrestle Kingdom and the G1 Supercard last year and Dominion and stuff, is that the audience, that the WrestleTalk audience, so the wider audience, isn't interested in New Japan. What they're interested in is WWE, and to a lesser extent AEW, and to an even lesser extent NXT. So, which means then that New Japan is an even lesser extent. It's the same with Impact and stuff. If we were to do an Impact Wrestling video, the views just wouldn't be there, which unfortunately means as a business thing, it's not really worth our time doing. We're just losing money on making the video. But as a Patreon thing, maybe it could work. And we're having a chat. Andy Datson might be doing some more video work for Patreon. So keep your eyes peeled on that one. It could be coming soon. Alex Kirkman says, okay, don't laugh at me. I love Dolph Ziggler. I don't like the way he's been treated for pretty much his entire WWE career, but I honestly believe he has the potential to make it as a legit main eventer. I think he's capable of 5-star matches and a legitimate lengthy title reign. All he needs is a rocket strapped to him, and I hand on heart believe he has the potential to be the next Shawn Michaels. I did say, don't laugh at me. My question is, do you think it's too late, or do you think it will happen? For me, Alex, I'm afraid I think it's too late.
I unfortunately have to agree. And I'm also a huge Dolph Ziggler fan. I think if you look back at some of the matches he's had, they're absolutely incredible. But I think he's just had too much stop, start to be credible to an audience at this point. And yeah, in a different time, in a different universe, if he hadn't had that concussion after when he got his first title reign, and that had more longevity, I think things would have turned out very differently. It's the old wrestling butterfly effect.
Yeah.
That one wrong move or one kick in the wrong place can just change someone's career trajectory forever. And I think that was the Dolph Ziggler moment.
Yeah, it's funny actually. I was rewatching because I was editing my other podcast the other week, and then add on in the background. Sometimes I like to have wrestling on in the background, and I was watching Survivor Series 2014 when you had that Team Authority versus Team Cena thing, which Dolph Ziggler went through all to the end. You had the debut of Sting and everything like that. And I was watching that event, being like, "How did you not capitalize on this Dolph Ziggler thing here at this point?" Like, by that point, I thought it might have been too late for Dolph, but they just caught something with him all of a sudden. And then you look at what he did in 2015, and it amounts to nothing. And that's it. Like, I think you're right, Alex. I think that Dolph is always capable of doing some really great stuff. I just don't think WWE have ever had the faith in him, because if they weren't going to do anything after Survivor Series 2014, they're never going to do anything with him.
No, and it's a shame. They got lightning in a jar. They forgot to put the lid on.
Owen says, my question is, who do you think is on the brink of breaking into superstardom in the same vein as Drew was earlier this year? Drew before the Royal Rumble was definitely on the upper mid-card and well protected, so it makes sense that he was the one to eliminate Lesnar. I'd like to see Chad Gable get a push like this, but he's nowhere near that position. Who do you guys think on the main roster could be in that spot, say, by next year's Royal Rumble? God, I'd love to see a big Chad Gable push. I'd love
Yeah.
to see it.
I love Chad Gable. I wanted him to be the hacker, which is a storyline that they've now completely dropped. Because it was meant to be Ali, then Ali got moved to Raw because he was annoyed of being ignored by Bruce Pritchard. Well, sucks to be you, mate.
I think he's moved back as well. I think he's back on SmackDown again.
So maybe we will get him revealed as the hacker because Chad Gable was one of the voices in the hacker video. I really want a proper Ricochet push.
Oh yes, yeah, that's a really The fact that you've got Ricochet and you're not pushing him into that sort of position is an absolute crime. I'm just gonna have a quick search for. Let's have a look. He's still under Mustafa Ali on WWE.com, and he's according to this, he's on SmackDown. So got moved back. Dwayne Cooley says, this might sound weird, but I had a dream that John Cena and CM Punk had a career renaissance wrestling in Ring of Honor. CM Punk could be a more realistic, although he is older and it gets likely that it will happen. But I want to get your guys' opinion on if John Cena was to do a Chris Jericho style end to his career run and wrestle outside of WWE. We always thought Jericho would be a WWE lifer, but surprised us in 2018. I want to know, how do you think John Cena would fare wrestling in other promotions such as ROH, AEW, and even New Japan? He would thrive because John Cena is a really, really good professional wrestler and knows how to tell a story. And he would get huge reactions no matter what he did.
He gets such a bum rap when people are going, oh, it's the 5 moves of doom. Like, have you ever watched a John Cena match? Like, there's like way more than 5 moves. He was always learning new things. Was like the hardest working guy in that company for about a decade.
Yeah.
And I read a story that one time it was MVP went to Vince McMahon and said, give me the Cena schedule, I can handle it. And Vince gave him 70% of the Cena schedule. And MVP was like, I can't handle
it. Yeah, absolutely. He would thrive anywhere. And if John Cena was to do that, I'd love to see John Cena, Hiroshi Tanahashi in New Japan. That's my dream match. Oh, I'd love to see it. Kid Gaskin, who do you think will be the first AEW Triple Crown winner? So winning the world titles, tag titles, and the TNT championship. I'm going to go for my boy Kenny Omega. And Kenny's going to be our first guy.
Oh, that's a really tricky one because I also had Kenny, but then I don't want to pick the same as you because then because then people in the comments can't talk one of us wrong. I'm gonna go Hangman Page.
Hangman's a good shout. The other one I was going to say was Jericho. I think Jericho's a possibility as well.
Will he step down though and take the TNT title when he was the first ever AEW champion?
Marcel Jura says, if you had to cast a Street Fighter movie, including most of the iconic characters of the franchise, and you can only use wrestlers, who are you going to pick? Secondly, for Adam, are you familiar with Waldmeister Woodruff? And wouldn't you agree that it tastes nothing like apples? Have a lovely weekend, guys. It does taste like apples, Marcel. It's time to get over it, mate. It's definitely an apple drink. Have you ever had it?
I don't know what it tastes like because I've never ordered it sober.
Right, so to cast a Street Fighter movie, casting Kenny Omega.
Really? Not Dolph Ziggler? I go with Dolph Ziggler.
Oh, he has got lovely hair, hasn't he?
He does, yeah.
Yeah, he has got lovely hair. Blanca. No, okay, I'm casting Rusev in the Zangief role.
Yes, snap in, correct. Who would you cast? Who was in the Street Fighter movie? Because I know the game better than the movie, and I'm casting Street Fighter characters in the game that aren't in the movie.
Well, it's the same. That's what I would do as well, because that Street Fighter movie, as much as I do love it, Kylie Minogue was not the greatest Cammy, although Raul Julia was the best Bison. God. Okay, so who would we cast as Ken? Who's a good Ken? Probably Hiroshi Tanahashi. Who are you going to say?
I was going to say Ziggler for Ken, just because.
Oh, sorry, no, sorry. I mean Ryu. Who are you going to cast as
Oh,
Ryu?
wow, Ryu. No, Tanahashi's a really good shout.
Yeah, Tanahashi's a good Ryu. Bison, he's a good villain. I suppose it depends on what sort of ethnicity you want to put on Bison, really.
Yeah, I know.
Although he wrestles in Thailand, I don't know if he was ever specifically said that he was
Thai.
from Thai. Yeah, I don't know if he was Thai. So don't know on that one. Blank is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Guy you want to paint green.
I had my Pete Cornell who's Chinese moment. I was like, who's green? Are there any green wrestlers?
In which case, to go the Pete Cornell route, we'll have Xia Li in the role of Chun Li. That seems to be there for us.
Nice.
That's a really good question, Marcel. I'm going to take some more time on that one because I want to do that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're running short on time. Tattoo Cooperman said, question for Quizlemania champions: who is the third Uso? Maybe we'll never know.
That was such a good episode. There are so many reasons that video could be demonetized. It isn't even funny.
And it did get demonetized as well. Funny enough, for using a Wale song. Irakli said
that was it. I'm gonna go and take care of some agriculture over here. That wasn't.
Nope. It was for using Wale's own music. Irakli said, who should be Moxley's next challenger? Ooh, that's a good question. I'd actually quite like it to be MJF. I think MJF's like the guy, you can talk about how he's not ranked number one at the moment. I think Brian Cage is still ranked number one, but now that he's lost, that should open it up for MJF to get that number one spot again. And I think MJF leading into All Out, I think that'd be quite cool.
I like that again, but I can't agree with you because we need those comments to come in. I'm gonna go with Lance Archer.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, I really like that actually. Okay, we've got Exo Jailer saying, since the MMA four horsewomen signed with WWE, they've been teasing that horsewomen match, and all the women have been pushing for it. My question is, do you think the match will ever happen, or will this join the likes of Punk, Austin, Taker, Sting as dream matches that will never happen? Yeah, I'm starting to think it is I don't know whether I would say it's a dream match for me. I would like to see it though. And I do think we are starting to get into that period of time where it's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, because Becky's on leave. I think Ronda's trying to get pregnant. And I also think that of those 8 women, I think 2 of them just aren't as good as the others. I think there's a real disparity in ability, which is not a reason for it not to happen. And of course, that's what developmental's for. But I just think if you look at all the moving pieces and the timeline that they were operating on, and much like you, I think it's just never going to actually come to fruition, unfortunately.
Martin Harmon says, wondering what you guys think about AEW and how they would be doing if they managed to air on Tuesdays as they originally planned, rather than having the Wednesday Night War. Would they have inherited the SmackDown audience? Would they be doing pay-per-view shows on TV? Do you think they'd be... do you think they are better for having competition? Would Jericho be tweeting about the 18 to 49 demo? I still think they'd be tweeting about the demo because that's always been the most important business thing. Even before the Wednesday Night Rating Wars were a thing, the demo always was the most important part. I don't think they would have inherited the SmackDown audience though, because I think that they would have been, that casual audience would have tuned in, realized that it's not WWE or a similar product to WWE, and would have stopped watching. But I do think they still would have been doing their pay-per-view TV shows, because I think that was always part of their plan. They've got 4 big pay-per-views, and you pepper these sort of mini TV pay-per-views in between them.
No, I completely agree. And I quite like the Wednesday Night War. I think kind of competition makes everyone better. And wrestling up until AEW and the Wednesday Night War sort of existed in certainly like an oligopoly, but it was almost like a WWE stranglehold where they could do what they want. And when you're the only gig in town, there's no motivation to be better. And Vince always does well when his back's against the ropes.
Absolutely. Last question comes in from Dre M. Best. I apologize if I said that wrong. And it's quite a long one, so I will try and read out as much of it as possible because I do think you've made some excellent arguments here. So they say, I really enjoyed your review of AEW this week, but I have to disagree with your comments about the women's division. I'm not delusional. I know the division has had its issues. They frustrated me greatly in the past, but I honestly think right now the division has been more interesting than it's ever been before. I think there's a tendency for wrestling fans to develop a narrative about certain things in their head and then let it become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The narrative is that WWE doesn't do anything with its women's division, so anything that's not blow away stupendous is taken as evidence that the division is rancidness. Not saying it's the best book thing on TV, but I have noticed a willingness to kind of blow over any developments they do actually happen in the division in favor of going over the same points, regardless of how applicable they are to the individual episode. For example, this week, Shida's promo, they set up 2 story elements. You completely skipped over the entire story of the Nightmare Sisters match where they kept disagreeing, arguing over tags, and generally can't seem to get along. And while you did give some time to Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero, a lot of that was taken up with the why isn't AEW women's division better conversation, which is a valuable conversation to have, but not to the expense of covering the actual development within the division itself. Later in the show, you also said there's nothing happening within division and said that when they're not building to anything, there's clearly building towards Shida Rose rematch it all out. Rose said she was going to get a manager to help her win the title back, even calling out Shida in that promo. Not saying that you guys are bad or anything. I'm not even aware of all of these. I'm not even a fan of all these angles. Don't really care about the Nightmare Sisters. But I do think that there would be a lot more to care about into the coverage of these segments if they were just mid-card male acts in the company, even if they were done in the exact same way. But since the narrative is that AEW doesn't put any effort into their women's division, its coverage seems to be the match's perceived apathy. Sorry again, I am a huge fan. This just feels this aspect of the AEW's reviews have been bothering me for quite some time now. I think I've said my piece on this on yesterday's review. While I don't disagree with some of your points there, it's a perception thing of the company. I don't think the company particularly care. And one of the things that has been said about AEW is that Tony Khan's a numbers man, and the women's segments in AEW don't draw the numbers, so they're not putting the same effort that they are. And as I said yesterday's show, the storylines aren't as good. Like, the Nightmare Sisters storyline is not as good as Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. But not many things are going to be as good as sort of Hangman and Omega. But also, I feel like there's more effort being put into this storyline than there is into this one over here. There's way more effort being put into Jon Moxley's storylines than there are Shida's. There are storylines, sure, but there's not the same level of effort that's being put in for my money anyway. But I mean, as I said, I think I've more or less said my piece on this. But what do you think?
It's a cyclical debate, isn't it? The numbers, Tony Khan's numbers guy, and those women's segments don't draw the numbers, so they put less effort into them. But because they put less effort into them, they aren't as good, which means they won't draw the numbers. And so At some point, something has to kind of break that cycle. And what that is, I don't know. And thank goodness it's not my job to know. But I reckon eventually they'll get there.
Yeah, I think given some time that they could get there. And I know that they've got some things working against them. COVID is obviously working against them. They have more of an international flavor to their women's division. They've got a lot of the Joshi girls who they can't get access to. They can't get access to some of the talent that they want, which I totally get. But as Ollie said yesterday, Big Swole is someone that you could have been doing something with, and they did a storyline where they suspended her. I know that's building towards the Britt Baker match, but you've also taken someone else off of TV. I think that AEW is actually in a very interesting position at the moment where, because you haven't got Britt Baker, because you haven't got Chris Statlander, all of a sudden, actually, you've got opportunities to start creating some new stars. I think that they were starting to do that with Abaddon a couple of weeks ago. You've got Eve Elise and Diamante on next week's show. There is stuff that you can start to do, but it's never presented. Like, okay, so the best way for me to put this is, at this point in time, there is no chance that a Hikaru Shida title defense is going to main event a TV show, because it does not feel like it should be the main event of a TV show. And that's part of the problem.
Yeah, they've got all the ingredients to get there, but they just haven't put it all together yet in a way that's going to be beneficial for everyone. So,
Yes.
they've got eggs, they've got milk, they've got flour, but they don't have cake. And I think it's important that both the company and us fans take time to step back and let the process happen. Let that kind of women's division bake-off moment happen. And then in the end, everyone gets cake.
But I'm afraid that's all we've got time for on this edition of the WrestleTalk podcast. Adam, thank you so much for joining us on this show. Where can people find you on the old social medias?
So you can find me on the old Twitter sphere at Adam_Pearson, the Instagram Adam_Pearson_TV, and I believe Adam Pearson videos on YouTube, but they are not very good videos, as a heads up.
Anything else you'd like to plug before we head out of here?
I don't have anything I can plug right now. I'm under a lot of NDAs and embargoes and what have you, but I will be plugging in the not too distant future, rest assured.
Well, thank you all so much for watching. If you want to submit a question to the mailbag, become a pledge hammer on Patreon. Our review of WCPW Built to Destroy 2016 is now live for Patreon backers of the £5 and above, $5 and above level rather. When you're under consultation mode for a second there. Thank you all so much for watching. Click the videos that appeared on screen now to catch up with more awesome WrestleTalk things. Take care. I love you. Goodbye.